the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Our guests in the studio are Gregory Beylarian and Barbara Seranella. Artist Gregory Beylarian was born in New York City, earned a bachelor's in design from Rochester Institute of Technology, and spent a year in Milan at the Domus Academy. What were you doing at Domus, Gregory?
I was working on my master's.
In design?
Master's in design, right.
Tell us a little bit about Domus, because it is just a very special, important design school, isn't it?
Domus was known and is known for its very unique assemblage of the great Italian school of design. And a lot of the masters of design work in Milan, and although many people in society aren't aware of what they're doing because you don't necessarily link a name to it, but they happen to be there and they mentor at this school. So Domus was a great opportunity to go into the conceptual and the theoretical aspects of what design is all about.
Is it like a design lab? Do they experiment and do different?
It is like a lab, and it's like a conceptual lab. And
that's what I was wondering.
It was beautiful because, coming from American schooling and the industrial design programs that I had gone through in the U.S., they were very technical and very structured in that you learned really how to manifest an idea.
The U.S.
In the U.S.
Yeah.
But the European way, or the Italian way, now said, okay, we don't care about that. You should already know that. We want you to go deeper and go into the spirit or the essence of what you want to create and bring that out into the item.
Do they have well-known people working there, or is it just like a think tank of a group of thinkers?
Well, it's a group of thinkers, but what makes it so unique is that the teachers are actually these masters, which become your mentors. They come in and do a sabbatical in the school.
Oh, they do. So they are well-known people from around the world, or around the world?
Well,
Italian?
They're primarily Italian, but there's Isao Hasoi, who's Japanese design intellect, and there's a few others, but primarily they're the Italian school of thought. And they come to the school and they'll work with you for like 3 months or 2 months.
And after you went to school there, you stayed in Italy for a while.
Right.
What were you doing during that time?
I was apprenticing then with a design studio.
So did you get a job because of Domus?
It was kind of parallel, right? And it was a very intriguing design studio because they integrated art and design. And so they were doing a lot of paintings to express themselves. And then they would transform those ideas and symbols into products. So for me, it was the first
That's what you
phase.
wanted. And then what got you to Gaetano Pesce?
Right, Gaetano.
Tell us about
Gaetano
him.
in the design world is a very wild experimentalist, a true visionary. And for me, he went even a step beyond King and Miranda, not in quality, but in merging art and design. He's in a lot of museums.
The name is so great. I love saying that name.
And so he was essentially an idol of mine because he was really doing a fusion of art and design like nobody else.
So you'd already come out of that background then from Domus. So, but that probably was one of the reasons he wanted you, right?
Well, what happened was when I returned back to New York City after living in Domus in Milan for a few years, I ironically found out that his studio was in New York City. I had no idea. I thought it was in Italy. So I took the chance and sent him a letter. And out of good fortune, I got an interview with him and got to work with him for a year in his studio.
That's so great. And then you took your little motorcycle and came to California?
Exactly.
Why didn't you stay with him? Was it like an apprenticeship for a certain amount of time? Or?
Right. I was there for a year, and it was an incredible year of learning. He really, you know, because it was hands-on, we actually built his structures for him by hand. His things, as some are made, manufactured by factories, but a good part of things are made by hand by the crew in the studio. So we actually built, so I learned how to bring wild concepts to reality in three-dimensional form, and it was a very challenging experience.
And then you brought him to California.
Right.
Your smarts.
Well, you know.
And what were you doing? Did you come to work for Disney, or did you just get the job?
No, what happened was, after Gaetano Pesce, I felt like I've made this transition through the design levels, and now I'm at the point where my true passion, my true love has always been fine art. And I figured, let's go to California and now work on that, work on myself.
Oh. So,
focus on the art.
But you went to Disney, and did you redo the mice and the ducks and Goofy? What did you do?
Well, after a year in LA, without, you know, I was either doing odds and end construction. I didn't want anything to do with the design world. I was really wanted to focus on my art. And one job I got was motorcycle delivering paper, you know, like envelopes and things to offices. And
delivery boy on your motorcycle.
Here I am with a master's degree and all this education, and I'm riding my motorcycle around, and one day I drop off my one package to a design studio, and I look around and I go, what am I doing?
Why am I not here, right?
Why don't I have a change? So another, you know, twist of fate, I found out there was an opportunity at Disney. I made a call, and it was a profound set of circumstances, and I got a job.
Good. And then, but
how did
you? How did you? You know, in your bio it says I was redoing Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse. How do you redo those or present new ways of seeing them?
I was very fortunate, and I landed in the right place at the right time, and I connected with the group that was the head of consumer products for the 6 standard characters, which is Mickey Mouse, Minnie, Donald Duck, Daisy, and Pluto. And
our happy little friends.
Yeah, and what they gave me was the opportunity to explore and develop concepts and new ideas. So to regenerate those known American icons and present them in a new way in all sorts of mediums like packaging, toys.
I see. So you had to
graphics.
Decide what really worked with their characters and what you could do that you would sell to consumers.
Right, exactly. So
like
you could
watches,
create new ideas for lamps and clocks, furniture. You know, I really got to explore.
I see.
And then we decided to head up a new identity. So I worked with the head drawer, the living, breathing Mickey Mouse of Mickey Mouse, the man who taught everyone how to draw Mickey Mouse. And together we created a futuristic Mickey, Future Mouse, and it was a whole program inspired back then by really the rave culture that was unfolding. So I took modern futuristic elements and created a digital face of Mickey.
So you used computer and you
completely digital.
Really?
Completely digital, yeah. Yeah. Took his original conceptual sketches and then transformed it into a modern, futuristic version of the mouse.
So we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, do we?
Right.
There's a lot.
There is a lot going on.
The other thing, you've done these massive installations. I guess this was the next step after Disney?
Right. After I consider them apprenticeships. After 2.5 years there, it was really, now I felt like I could support myself and go full focus into really what I loved. And I made that leap of faith. And
so you went on your own.
I went on my own. Until this day, I'm happy to say I haven't clocked in.
You did? You did something called Soul Shop in 1999. What was that?
Soul Shop was...
Do I have a picture of that? No.
We don't know.
Okay.
That's a massive undertaking. Soul Shop, briefly, basically is something I worked a whole year on. And I created 3,000 portraits, basically, which is faces. They were all faces, and they're what you would say contemporary portraits. It was to create an installation from physically the space would be a huge rectangular box from floor to ceiling. Every inch is covered in chronological order of each piece that was made. So each piece is laid out. And so you actually, the idea in one sense is you walk into the space of the mind of the artist. There isn't even a block of white.
Nothing.
Nothing. In the center there's a car. There's an art car with 100 elephants that's also been transformed.
So you need a big warehouse to show this.
Not a warehouse, it could be a good-sized gallery space.
Then the other thing, I saw a show, I'm going to show this, it's out of context because this is more 2001, but this is Trust the Flow.
Trust the Flow,
and this kind of explains what you're talking about.
Yes.
Piece by piece next to each other.
Right. That kind of scrapes the surface of what Soul Shop was.
All of those things are individual drawings in that show.
Right. And it's hard to see the scale of it, but it's quite a large wall.
Now, we don't have too much time left, but I want to show something. The other project that we were talking about is Monrovia Theater's 12. So
right,
12
Monrovia
theaters.
12 theaters,
and
luxurious.
For someone in a theater to take an artist and actually do contemporary work, original work, I think is brilliant. And
it is.
I'd love to show. This was one wall. It's probably very hard to see, but it's what you were talking about,
50,
solid.
Right. Well, those are 50 portraits I did of celebrities from past to present.
Oh, so all
and
celebrities.
The movie theater, yeah, from the silver screen.
So they're all originals,
right?
Collaged on top of each other, or are they side by side?
They're side by side, like a mosaic pattern.
And then,
that wall is actually 35 feet long and 8 feet high. So it's a wide
8
piece.
8 feet high.
It's a huge mural piece.
Something else at that Monrovia 12 was The Wizard of Oz, which is perfect for that.
Right.
How big is this?
That one is 20 feet wide and 10 feet high.
This is so amazing, the size of all of these. Did you have to go before a committee or just present your work?
I had meetings with the owner of the movie theater who was, developing this whole project. And who had, with Rustan Zeitlian, the manager on that project, the vision to generate...
He's the architect manager, yes.
To create contemporary modern art that would actually have a commercial presence and work with the theater, and that's why we chose these themes, interpretations of The Wizard of Oz, or this one here.
One.
A famous The Kiss from Gone with the Wind.
This is over the ticket takers.
Yeah, well, no, this one actually is to the right of the ticket counters, and this one's almost 34 feet high.
Is that right?
Yeah, not only was it an undertaking to make them, but to install them, I have to say, was...
But then how many separate pieces were in that theater?
There's 4.
Four
total.
separate pieces.
Right.
Our time has run out, and I didn't get to talk to you about everything I wanted to talk to you. Where are we going to see you from here on?
So I'm sure soon again, I'm sure.
And your work?
Well, I just took down a show, so we'll see what's coming up next. I'm sure there'll be some surprises.
We'll look for your name, Gregory Beylarian. And I wanted to talk to you about the duduk.
Echo of the Mountains.
Tell us just about that instrument.
Well, it's the true heart of the Armenian people. It's one of the oldest instruments.
Is this the instrument? It's going to be very hard to see.
Yeah, that's the instrument.
But it's a wind instrument.
And I'm very passionate about music. When I discovered the duduk, tears came to my eyes.
This is the...
And I was fortunate to find some of the greatest duduk masters of all living here in Los Angeles. And I've been with them for 7 years, and now recording and playing with them.
And you play and record. I think that's very exciting too, to get those musical genes along with the art genes.
It's really, I think it's the same gene, you know.
We all have it on the right side of our brain. Thanks very much,
Thank
Gregory
you.
Beylarian. Don't go away. We'll be right back with author Barbara Seranella. Perfect. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and we're back with best-selling author Barbara Seranella, who writes crime novels. Barbara was born in Santa Monica, raised in nearby Palisades, the Pacific Palisades. Well, partially anyway, because during that time she ran away from home. She was a hippie, I guess. She joined a hippie commune in San Francisco. She rode Outlaw Motorcycle Club with
Close enough.
Close enough?
I was on the back.
She was a heroin addict. Then she settled in L.A. to a really normal life of an auto mechanic.
Yes, yes. It was
So
fun.
you had this really kind of different upbringing.
Yes.
And we say you ran away at 14.
The equivalent of joining the circus. Went up to the Haight-Ashbury, joined a hippie commune, became
How
tourist
did
Barbara.
you do that?
Just left home one day, didn't come back.
Were
Stuck
you
my
so
thumb out.
rebellious? Were you rebellious?
You know, this was 1970. I had been doing drugs, went through a whole personality change from that. Couldn't wait to get out in the real world with real people. Wanted to get away from Pacific Palisades.
At 14?
At 14, braces on my teeth, just stuck my thumb out. Wound up in the Haight-Ashbury, met people, got my braces taken off, and just started over with a new identity.
You had no fear. There was no fear
I
involved.
was 14.
I know, but wouldn't you say, "Oh, I'm afraid to cross the street"?
Yeah. Now I was joking earlier that now I have to use the guardrails when I'm going downstairs. I used to be in the back of a Harley in Topanga Canyon, no helmet, drunk, go fast, I don't care. And now I'm like,
Exactly.
Miss Cautious here.
But you didn't take any writing lessons. You didn't go to college to learn your English literature.
No, I didn't. I actually didn't even go to high school.
And here you are, a best-selling author. So this
I
is
did
what,
take writing classes, actually. I had my first story published in 1977 in Easy Rider magazine, which
Is
is
that right?
for adult bikers, yes.
So what? So you wanted to write, obviously.
I always wanted to write all my life. And I used to write, after I got sober and I was working as an auto mechanic, I used to write little pieces like for Reader's Digest and send them in, there's
Oh,
like
you
a day
did?
in the life. They
Yeah.
never got published, but I always was trying something.
I
And
see.
then in 93, I was working at the Texaco station in Brentwood, and a man came in to run it named Ron Seranella. And he was my boss for a couple years, and we fell in love, and he made me service manager, and before we fell in love, I was service manager on my own merit, not
because
no
of the boss.
hanky-panky, okay.
The boss didn't name
It was
you.
before the hanky-panky, okay. And we were having dinner, and he said, I don't see you being an auto mechanic when you're 40. I think it'd be really hard on your body, and you'll get injured, and isn't there anything else you ever wanted to do? So about 3 times we had this conversation, I finally got down to it. Well, I always wanted to be a writer.
Is that right? He had to
And-
really pull it out of you?
Yeah, because it's a little dream. And in LA, everybody's going to be something, right? So you're sort of
Exactly.
like, hold it close to your heart. And then he said, well, why don't you give that a go? So he made it possible in that I didn't have to work and I could devote myself to it. Then I started taking classes.
Oh,
So I went.
that's what I wondered.
We lived in Laguna Beach in Santa Monica, and so I took classes at UCI at the extension program, which of course you don't have to have
Your
the
background.
prerequisite
Right.
education. You just pay the money and
And
take
go
the
take a class, but you learn. You're learning
and I
something.
and I actually wrote a whole novel before I ever took a class, and kind of made a lot of mistakes. Never published that novel, but learned a lot about writing in the practice of it.
But the
sort
whole
of like auto
discipline-
mechanics,
So the whole discipline of writing a whole novel without knowing anything. Did you longhand it or type it or what'd you do?
I'm still writing on the first computer we bought in 1993. It was a laptop.
A dinosaur?
Yeah, and I still have it. I have a keyboard and a monitor and a printer that's all plugged in, so I'm not like
But
hunched
that's
over with
what
that
you
little
wanted.
screen.
That's what you liked and you worked on it.
It was
and-
wonderful because, I learned how to cut and paste, and, it paginates, it does all
And
that
that's
great
all you
stuff,
needed,
checks your
right?
spelling, and then you can print it out.
Well, wait. let's stop.
Okay.
Before we get any further, how did you learn to be an auto mechanic?
Well, I was 14. I was up in the Haight-Ashbury.
Right.
The girls around me were, the job opportunities were sort of like bake cookies and sell them in the park, get pregnant, get on welfare. I did try working as a painter for a while, a house painter in San Francisco. Very hard work on homemade scaffolding on those old Victorians, scraping the paint off the wood, and the Jefferson Starship's house, we painted that.
Did you?
Then we had a recycling center, we had plumbers, we had all these different businesses out of the community. Dope dealing was a huge profit-making venture there, but I didn't do that. And the guys that were auto mechanics always had money in their pockets.
You just observed what was happening.
And they always had a car to drive. They were always having fun. I thought, anywhere I go, I can be an auto mechanic. Anywhere I wind up, I can always work on my own car. It's a good skill. So I just went in one day and I said, I want to be an auto mechanic. So they let me start, cleaning parts and assembling parts.
You mean they taught you there? Mm-hmm. So you learned on the commune?
Yeah.
Is that right?
And then when I got my first jobs in the real world, there were more skilled people. I took a couple classes along the way, like automotive air conditioning, or I'd go to fuel injection seminars.
And then when you went, instead of going to an agency or something, you went to a gas station, right, or service station. Mm-hmm. And were you like the chief auto mechanic there?
I had my first job. Now I'm like 5 days sober, I think. I get this, no, wait a minute. I was a couple months sober, and I got this job at a gas station because I had my own tools. Auto mechanics work strictly on commission, so it's like you make as good as you are. And I think it appealed to this guy's sense of humor to hire a woman.
Okay, that's what I wondered.
And I had a great mentor there who taught me how to think, and he'd just say, woman, look at it. Think how it works, and go through the process.
But that now when you're talking, and I have some other questions to ask you about that, but when you're saying go through the process, that's how the books are. You're going through the process and you're thinking, aren't you? And you're putting everything together.
There's a lot of craft to learn to writing. There's a lot to learn about it before you start writing, and you learn and you teach yourself. But
but your mind is in that mode. Your automotive mechanic mode of
and I'm
doing
also
things.
A detective now too, because when you study people and their motives and why they said things, and like someone comes in the room and you want to know about them and you ask them a question about themselves and they don't answer that question, we politely just move on, and you never find that out. Now, how well does that work in writing? You're like, well, we want to know about this person. He has to answer our questions, so you have to address why they don't answer your questions and why in our culture we don't press. And so I'm just always studying people's body language and tone of voice, and why do I know this guy is a certain way? What's clued me in by?
But you write that then.
Yeah.
You write why he doesn't answer and what's underneath
absolutely.
it, and then you find all of that out. Well, it's like an interviewer, too, in the same way. If you give me yes and no answers, I have to ask you 100 questions to find out something. Mm-hmm. But you're not doing that. What happened when What happened when women came into the service station? Could they depend on you? Did they
I had a great following. I think once it worked against me, some old guy didn't want me to change the oil on his car. And then finally he just consented to let me change the oil, but he didn't want me to drive the car on the rack because he wasn't going to let a woman drive his car. But for the most part, people assume that if you're a lady auto mechanic, you must be really good.
So you know what you're doing.
Yeah, and I was good. And people would remember me, and they'd come back and ask for me. And as I say, I worked on commission, so I had a great following.
Okay, now, back to our books.
Okay.
You're a detective. You've written, what I wanted to know is detective, crime, mystery. Are they all the same, or are they all different genres?
Well, the thing is, when you say a mystery novel, it gives the connotation that it's a small book, whereas mystery novels do great explorations of place and character and time, and I don't mean time, I mean, historical novels. They're just set on that structure of a mystery, which is a great structure. I mean, the Harry Potter books are mysteries, but when you see it's a murder mystery, you think small, and so that's why we kind of say crime novel, to say, no, it's a novel, it's about people who change, it's just there are crimes involved.
So are we calling you a crime novelist? or a detective novel, or what? Let's talk about them because we only have a few minutes left. I guess you talked too much already.
Sorry.
But let's talk about.
They are mysteries. There's a murder, and they must be solved by the end of the book.
I see. So start. You've got 5 novels here, which is pretty best-selling stuff. Let's start. Where's the first one? Where's the second one?
This was the first book. I had written 3 books before I hit on this character of Munch Mancini, who is a lady auto mechanic with a past. She was a heroin addict, and in this book she is a heroin addict. It begins in a biker bar, ends in a police station, like many of my weekends in the bad old days.
Second book?
And the second book was No Offense Intended, which takes place 6 months later in her life. And then I jumped ahead 7 years.
And she just continued to live? Was she solving mysteries?
Yeah, she gets involved with situations from people from her past, from people at work.
And they're in paperback too. These 3 that were these 2 so far. And what's the third one?
Unwanted Company takes place in 1984 Los Angeles. And Munch gets a limo business, which I had a limo business.
Oh, that's what I thought was so interesting, because that's where you hear so much gossip and know what's going on in the town.
Yeah, we used to have microphones in the back, for prom time, so we'd know when the kids were planning something. It was just such an adversarial relationship with prom kids, which was what the title, Unwanted Company. I wanted the limo to get totaled at the end of the book. That was going to be the happy ending, but then my agent talked me out of it.
And the next one?
The next one was Unfinished Business, which is done very well. And that involves actually a rape and victims of people that are from the Brentwood gas station. And
so every bit of what we see in these books has come from this sordid past of yours, which has been nobody could ever get.
Absolutely. So I'm mining, being raped and how that affects your interpersonal relationships.
And the last one
No Man's Standing.
No Man's Standing, which is what? No one's left?
It's an old joke between Munch and her friend, which no man is going to get the best of them. No Man's Standing.
Oh.
And it involves the limo business and
so
her
you put everything together in No Man's Standing. One of the things that you've gotten, you belong to all these kind of clubs that have funny names and gotten awards from, like
Deadly Pleasures magazine.
Poison Pen, what is it?
Oh, yeah.
Hard Boiled Book Club?
Yes.
Is that really true?
All the mystery bookstores are great. Murder to Die For, Mysteries to Die For.
Those are all groups that...
They're actually bookstores and fan magazines, and Poison Pen is a press now.
So besides using... this is going to be my last question, but besides using your past, you go out and do ride-alongs and
go to crime scenes. I went to a stripper bar because
do you take notes when you go to these places, or do you
No,
remember?
because it's about impressions. It's not about facts.
I see.
So I don't have to. I remember everything that I want to.
Oh, I'm so glad, because it's produced all these books.
Thank you.
They must be great airplane books.
I think they're great books. I have a lot of people tell me that they read them in one sitting, which is a huge compliment.
That's the best.
Yeah.
Barbara, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. And thank you for watching us. Keep riding to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 917. See you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles.